Okay, welcome back for another stock chat with Clinical Trader. It is the 7th of December 2022, and today we're going to take a look at Red 5 Limited. The stock code for that is RED. No surprise there, I guess. We're looking at the home page of their website, and you can see it's a fairly modern looking establishment, although I would say that a lot of these videos that are put out by companies are with their workers in shiny new clothing. But nevertheless, you can see the sort of terrain that we're looking at here in Western Australia, and they're ramping up production. Red 5 emerges as one of the top 10 um, miners in Australia measured by reserves, which is known gold in the ground. And they claim to be very actively exploring, as the video shows here. All right, let's take a look at one of the latest releases. I won't go into too much of the history of the company because you can do your own research on that. I'm only really here to sort of point out the current situation of the company. So I've just uploaded this announcement that was put out by Red 5 on the 21st of November. You can see the date over here on the right-hand side. It's the title of this is King of the Hills on track for commercial production in December 2022 quarter. So they've been in production since June, but they're in that early stage where they're teething out all the problems and not able to declare that they're in full production, working as expected, and that just don't have the runs under the belt to be able to say that things are pretty consistent. So in December this quarter, they're expecting to be in a position to announce that they are in fact at commercial production. All right, so a couple of things out of this announcement we'll go through. In this production update, Red announced that the King of the Hills, KOTH stands for King of the Hills, processing plant has performed well. And obviously that's good news. And the overall plant utilization has been averaging above 95%. So that means that for 5% of the time they've had to shut the plant down to, for some reason, we don't know the reason, they don't tell us the reason, but for some reason things haven't been just perfect. It's not unusual to see plant utilization around this 95% figure, so that is what we would expect. They also warn us in this announcement that there is a scheduled plant shutdown for approximately 72 hours in the last quarter, and in November they say. So that's gone, it's happened, and we're now moving forward. They have three mines. They are the Darlot Underground Mine, the Great Western Mine, and the King of the Hills Mine. They're all well resourced and performing in line with expectations according to this announcement. That's not my opinion, that's what they're telling us. Grade control drilling of these initial primary ore body levels is confirming the expected tons and grades. That simply means that they've conducted more drilling in between the previous holes, just to shore up the resource and make sure that their assumptions have been correct. So it's good news that that's happening. They've also had problems with securing staff, and they've finally been able to get additional crews in to replace those who had COVID, or those who have had COVID have recovered, to enable the mining schedule to catch up for the lost material movements as a result of COVID-19 absenteeism. So they're really lifting their boots and getting on with it. So that was a problem May through to July of this year, and they've been, trying to catch up with moving the ore around so that they can get to full production. Probably part of that December commercial production declaration statement that should come out soon. It's on track to get there in this quarter, so that news should come out either this quarter or early in January, which is all positive for the company, at least in theory. The location, I'll just show you this here. All right, so we've got Western Australia here. You can see that there. Okay, and I've just plotted a whole bunch of different mines on here. It's a bit limited as to how many you can put on, but nevertheless, this is what we're looking at. All right, so the purple pins are what we're looking at as part of Red 5's tenement. So we've got King of the Hills highlighted there. We've got the Darlot mine to the north. We've got the processing facility in the vicinity of King of the Hills, and we've got this Great Western Mine, which is right in front. I'm going to zoom in. We'll take a look at these initiatives. So this is the King of the Hill mine right here, King of the Hills gold mine, labelled, so it's definitely the real thing. And they've done extensional drilling in this area and here, and out to towards this pond. So this is the area where they're going to extend the open pit mining. They're also doing underground mining in addition to this, out of this pit, and things look like they're processing pretty well here. You won't see the processing plant on this image, but I do believe that this was the location in which they were going to put that. This is an old image, so it's sort of hard to see that where it is. All right, so let's have a look at this. Get all three of these in play, just so we can see all three. Okay, so way up here we have the Darlot mine. King of the Hills, the processing plant, now that it's been built and fully paid for, well, sorry, not fully paid for, they've taken on that loan to get it done. That's completed. Red 5 have decided that it's cheaper to truck the ore from the north here all the way down to King of the Hills, because the sheer size of the processing plant and the throughput rate make it more cost effective to do it that way. So for whatever reason, this plant up here is going to sit idle as far as I could see. I'm not really sure why that's the case. I would think that you would look for perhaps some of the other miners in the periphery to use that plant and maybe rent it out, for example, or come up with an agreement of a payment fee schedule to use the plant. But we'll have to wait and see. And of course, the Great Western Mine in here, in between, that will be trucked also to King of the Hills. So you're looking at three fairly large-scale mines. This one really isn't developed at all. If I zoom in there, you can see there's a few spots here and there where they've had previous mining, but that's like in the pipeline down the track. Okay, at the moment, the main thing they're working on is this Darlot mine and the King of the Hills mine. So we'll wait and see what's going to happen with the success of those companies. Let's look at the chart. This is a longer term chart. We're looking at the weekly time frame, and so you can tell it's long term because we're here at the end of 2022. If we look back in the past, we go all the way back to 2014, and the company's been in this stage or various stages actually. I'll just put a couple of things on here while we're sort of just going through some. Actually, I'll just draw it from here. I'm just going to put these in to show you some support levels here. So this was resistance way back here in July of 2016. It had that big sell-off that came down. Great buying opportunity here. It came up, had a bit of a, you can put your Elliott waves on there if you like, but you can see there's almost three waves. So wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up, or 3 waves up in the total Elliott wave theory. I don't really worry too much about the Elliott wave side of things. I'm more interested in looking at fundamentals and matching it up with the technicalities going on. You can see here at the top end we have this support line. It sort of stretches through to here, but it broke through. You can see that it breaks through. What's that date? That's a March of this year. Broke through and we had a high up here of 46 cents before it came back down. But nevertheless, that gives us a little bit of an idea about perhaps one of the price targets we might get in that longer term picture. Bearing in mind, of course, we're at 18 cents today, and we've got this sort of range that's formed for red from the lows to the highs, and it's been fairly reliable. So, we've had a pretty decent opportunity to get in here for this rally to head higher. And as I've said, they're about to enter into commercial production, which of course gives them a bit more security, and they're supposed to be lowering their all-in sustaining costs from something ridiculous like 2,400 Australian dollars down to the range of around $1,400. So, if you just based on some of those numbers, we're looking at around about 1,200 Australian dollars profitability per ounce of gold that comes out of the ground. And as you know from the homepage there, that we have a very high ore reserve for this mine. So long term, I think the life of mine plan extends to around about 16 years. So it's 16 years of significant gold production. And of course, they're probably is scope to increase that somewhat going forward. So, I guess the risk is that, that December commercial production guidance doesn't please investors, or perhaps the all-in sustaining costs are higher than expected, and we get this breakdown and head lower. Is that likely? I don't think it is likely. I mean, Red have raised a lot of cash in the last year or so. They had to raise money to build the mining processing plant. They also raised another $60 million recently, just simply to shore up the short-term, going into commercial production phase of development that they're going through. So, they're in a position now where they won't have to raise capital for some time. And if the mine can prove to be profitable, which it should be based on those numbers, then Red 5 looks like it could be in for a significant improvement. Coming back to the announcement, I did skip a part here. You can see here, this is one of the latest photos of the mine pit, mining in the southern end of the King of the Hills open pit. And in the announcement, they did declare somewhere up here that they got down to the ore body that they're after. Stage 1 is complete, and the primary ore body. So this in here, I think, is the primary ore body from what I can work out in this area. You can tell by the different coloured rock in there. So that's ore body rock. And then around the outsides there, you've got this red iron basalt rock. All right, but down here was interesting. I tagged this onto the end of that announcement, which was interesting. And I've had a bit of a look in HotCopper on this. And there seems to be a bit of confusion as to what actually all of this information here means. So the gist of it is that Red 5 has been approached by other interested parties in relation to transactions, including consolidation, acquisition, and merger. In other words, do we join up with another miner? Will we be acquired by another miner, consolidate with another company? One that's been thrown out there is St. Barbara. That's been one that came up. The other one was, I think, CMM. That is, can't remember the name of it, but CMM is another one that's been thrown out there as a possible source for this rumour. It's actually not a rumour. They're confirming they've had discussions. So yeah, but interesting down here. Okay, shareholders and investors should not place any reliance on the potential for a strategic transaction to ultimately eventuate. In other words, look, there's talks. We've talked to a few people, a few other companies. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. But at this stage, nothing's signed, nothing's happening, and you should not base your investment decisions based on these rumors or the possibility that this could actually transpire. So there's been a lot of discussion about Red 5 being the target of a takeover, but what's to say that it's actually the other way around, in which Red 5 might actually merge or acquire St. Barbara, for example, or some other miner in that area. I mean, it is like the heartland of West Australian mining. So we don't know the details of those discussions. They've been had, but until then, it's business as usual. And I would think too that now that Red 5 is in a position where they've got their finance sorted, they're just going into production, to me, to sell out at this point doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it would have to be something that would be mutual for both parties and benefit both parties. And St. Barbara definitely falls into that category. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Back to the chart. Yeah, so we've had this, I'll go to a daily chart here real quick. I think I'm going to run out of time. I've got about a minute left before I've got to head off. But, in terms of the daily, you can see we've got this sort of upward trend where we're sort of zigzagging our way up. I can't see why it won't continue. It's possible we could come back down and perhaps test some of these lows again in that range of 16 cents, but I don't see why that would happen given that they've raised capital recently. Things are tracking along as they should be. I'd say the chances of going higher is much better. Up into this 34-cent range, up to 40 cents would be about my target. So that's today's video. Red 5 Limited. Do your own work on it. And check out some of my other videos. I'll place one that I made recently on RSG up in the top left corner there. You can check that out. Thanks, guys.
You say that you're fine, but now you're